One thing that kept going through my head while reading this chapter is how badly a Pandora Hearts anime reboot really needs to happen. For example, Oz's re-entry. It was great. The transition from Alice, Oz's expression, Gil's expression, just everything about it was awesome. Really, if you read the entire chapter picturing it animated, it's an amazing thought. Oz's re-entry, picturing that animated, it needs to happen. At this point, I won't stop hoping for an anime reboot because the story really deserves it, and it could really benefit from being animated. Animated well, granted, but it could benefit from it. Anyways, talking about more about the actual chapter itself. The surprise star of it was Jack. Actually, he's kind of the surprise star of the entire manga. Jack and Alice's interaction was easily the best part of the chapter, and it was just, okay, maybe not the best. I'll get to the other potential best part of the chapter after this, but it was breathtaking. The build-up, the art, the expressions, the framing, the execution in general, all of it was perfect. One detail I love is how Jack thinks of Oswald and Lacey as he confesses to Alice. He's specifically thinking of their dying expressions. It highlights the arc that Jack just went through, and how the recent events have deeply affected him. Looking back from here, it's brilliant how Mochijun set this all up. The characterization we got for Jack in Retrace 99 wasn't just extra character building. It was essential for us to know what's going on in Jack's head when Oswald dies, when he sees Lacey's final words, and finally when he has this confrontation with Alice. I'll wait to see how the manga ends to make sure, but as of right now, it's entirely possible Jack might end up being my favorite character in the series. Going from there, the last few pages of this chapter are similarly pretty much perfect. This chapter in general is an example of how Mochijun isn't just great at constructing a story, but is also great at constructing how it's presented. I feel like I covered this kind of in the last chapter discussion video, but once you hit these last few pages, once you see that final page, the emotional impact is just huge. I do have one very minor issue with the presentation, though. The lack of detail when Alice drinks Oz's blood for the contract. It's kinda jarring, especially considering the detail put into every other panel surrounding it. It feels like they should have cropped or shrunk the panels with Gil's and Oz's expressions just a bit to allow more detail to be given to that panel. I hope that'll be touched up in the final volume release. I mean, if not, it's still just a nitpick, but it would have been nice to have more detail in that panel to match the others is all. It would have helped the scene flow a tiny bit better. So, those are my main thoughts on the chapter. There was a lot of other things that happened that I could talk about, but it's to the point of like almost having too much to talk about. This chapter was just amazing in how many things it wrapped up, and I can't possibly touch on all of them, so I just picked the highlights, and these are amazing highlights. But considering that this is the penultimate chapter, I'm gonna present some questions that I have, some final questions I have that I hope the series will address. Some of them are obviously gonna be addressed with the ending, but first off, what's going to happen with the Baskervilles and their unluckiness, their misfortune, the natural misfortune they have about them? The thing where it's dangerous for non-Baskervilles to be around Baskervilles. Is that going to be quote-unquote fixed somehow, or no? Also, what exactly is going to happen with the Alices? Why was the contract necessary in order to separate Alice and the Core? Are both Alices going to die? Are either of them going to die? I mainly just want clarification on the separation process. I figure we'll get it because it's kind of essential for the story, but I hope it goes to the extent where it specifically says why the contract was necessary. Because that's the one thing that has me raising my eyebrows a little bit here, is, well, why was the contract necessary? Just some technical explanation. Brief will do it, but just something. It'll be nice to have. And it'll be better for the story in general. Next, will there be a callback to Break asking Oz the "Where are you?" question for the second time back in Retrace 88, before they all left for Sablier? We never heard Oz's answer, so it feels like an obvious bit of information to be filled in. Another detail I'd prefer to be covered is when and how did White Alice get her memories back? It's likely this question won't be answered. I've come to terms with that. That we're just going to be left to assume she gradually got them back over time or something. But it would be great if we got some clarification on how she had her memories back, all the way back when Oz rejected Alice and Alice was sent back to that dimension to meet White Alice in the Abyss, and White Alice remembered everything. Because this has been bugging me for a while, just how she remembered everything. And last but not least, what happened to Barma? I'm going to assume he's dead, but we never saw a body, so I'm not completely ruling out his survival. Basically, if nothing is said about him in the final chapter, we gotta assume he's dead. And with all that said, I'll end this on Leo's little speech he gave to Levi in this amazing chapter. He says he's going to show all these onlookers a masterpiece. So, bring it on, Retrace 104. Show us a masterpiece.